Hey, Goba here. In my brand new series, I will be taking a look at every path and discussing their units and Lycons in depth. Today, we will look at the Destruction Path, the path that is all about damage locked behind a gimmick. We will evaluate how good they are, as well as their cons, whether to invest into them, all alongside a little build guide. I hope this also helps those people asking for updates on units that got no changes. After the units, we will be looking at all the Destruction Lycons. If you enjoyed this new video type, let me know below and let me know which path you want next. And now, let's begin. The Destruction Path is a path where every new limited DPS was expected and shown to delete content. Even the 4-stars showed great signs of strength with Shui Yi and Misha, though we haven't had a new 4-star erudition or hunt since release, so it's hard to tell. What this path does best is their gimmicks. Arlan already had HP drain, but Blade 1-upped him with HP draining and healing everywhere in his kit. Imbiber to Lune brought SP drain, Jingliu brought team-wide HP drain. It's a pretty cool path. So let's review these destructive units with a look first at 1.0. Hook, Arlan, Physical MC, and Clara. If you want to skip forward to a unit, timestamps are below, but please enjoy the ride if not. Pitch Dark Hook the Great is an explosive fire DPS. She veers more to the single target side of things with her high damage skew to single target on her blast skill, and her fully single target ultimate. Hook's gimmick is that burns on enemies increase her damage by a lot, adding a multiplier to her single target and AoE damage. It also gives her energy, greatly helping with ultimate cycling. In my opinion, Hook suffers from being released in 1.0. Some 1.0 units are banger, but Hook's traces excluding her A6 are very weak, and her Eidolons are quite subpar. Compare this to Shui Yi's 240% damage trace, for example. 1.0 4-star units are hit or miss most of the time, with someone like Tingyun still being disgustingly good, Dan Heng, for example, being forgotten outside of his Chad superfans. But maybe the new endgame mode will save him. If you really need a fire element DPS, Hook can still provide that archetype, but if you have Himiko, I would prioritize her instead, as she can fulfill this element in MOC whilst also being insane for pure fiction. Sam is also coming one day, and the dude has a lot of fiery and destructive mechanics, so I think she'll be lost to time when he arrives. Arlan, the crazy 4-star DPS of the closed beta tests, unfortunately got hit with a bunch of nerfs, and his playstyle is just a bit too risky for the little rewards it gives. We also don't have many units at all that can complement said playstyle, only receiving our third in 2.1 with Aventurine. His gimmick is consuming his own HP, dropping towards 1 HP for a massive damage increase. He also does not consume SP, thus being SP neutral while still outputting his maximum damage. Unfortunately, he couldn't abuse high SP consumption supports like Bronya, so the SP gimmick wasn't even that amazing. You could run him without a shielder, but that was even riskier. Nonetheless, with Aventurine out, his kit still isn't that incredible. We also have a large variety of lightning DPS units, all 3 limited ones being insanely popular among players for different reasons. If you're bored and want a unit that brings challenge and new playstyle, he's cool to invest into, but other than that, I don't think you should invest into him, especially if you want a strong and accessible carry. Clara, the punching bag that unleashes Svarog, is a standard 5-star unit and remains to this day a very strong one. While she can deal nice damage on her turn, her gimmick is all about counter attacks, unleashing as many attacks as times she gets hit. She also has a variety of damage types, single target, blast, and AoE, so she can be fine for any encounter. It is really crazy how she just keeps doing well in content. In Memory of Chaos, she does excellently, even being able to brute force non-physical weak stages. In Pure Fiction with enemies constantly spawning ahead of you, she just tanks their attacks and one-taps them back to the Shadow Realm. Her kit is very cool and she remains relevant in 2.1. If you have her and aren't already very satisfied with your teams, I would absolutely go and build her. Her support options are plenty, she can use a variety of sets excellently, and of course, destruction units can just pop on Aeon and perform great. In Memory of Chaos especially, until Boot Hill arrives, we don't really have a top tier physical DPS except Clara. I use my Argenti sometimes in there, but he's hard to set up, unlike in Pure Fiction where his ult go brrr. Destruction Trailblazer suffers immensely from being a free unit, the first Trailblazer Path unit, and a 1.0 unit. Their 2 ultimate types are hella cool though, and I hope we get more units with that in their kit. In my opinion, Sushong as well as Luca fit the physical break archetype much better, with Sushong gaining insane speed buffs and benefits, and Luca being able to detonate bleeds for much better damage. They're the first unit for a reason, and I wouldn't invest into them further than the first few stages of the early game. Leveling them is absolutely fine though, since that carries on through different Trailblazer paths, but traces will not carry over. Ideally, you get and invest into Clara, or you invest into a better free-to-play friendly DPS that covers a different element, because enemies have 3 weaknesses after all. Now onto the new releases, and beginning with our first new destruction unit all the way back in 1.2, Blade. He consumes HP every skill, every enhanced basic, and every ult sometimes, and he heals back up from talents and ults as well sometimes too. He is a very interesting DPS and just dropped out of nowhere with his HP based scaling. This saw him need specific supports and not be able to use others, and we had to start farming crit HP pieces, how annoying. Blade has a variety of attack types which makes him pretty versatile into all content, and he's a bit like Clara where he can pop off in pure fiction due to weak enemies spawning. He isn't doing the highest damage in the world, but he's still very solid, and we have yet to receive a dedicated HP% Harmony unit, so I can't wait to see what lies in store for him. Maybe they'll drain his HP too just to further drive the point home. If you want the top meta DPS, he isn't there anymore, but if you want a still very strong and fun DPS, he can do that for you. You don't need more damage than Blade to clear MOC anyways, and he does better into pure fiction than everyone on this list barring Clara. On top of that, he can let your other team use a unit like Tingyun too, which can be pretty valuable, though he will be stealing other important buffers like Sparkle, Bronya, Ruan Mei. Next up is Imbibitor Lune. He brought us the first big talks about power creep with his massive damage, but it was all held back by his SB usage. Through great team building and or usage though, we made him work just fine. He has very high single target damage on top of pretty high blast damage. Even in 2.1, he is an incredible DPS and very satisfying to use, with his E2 remaining one of the craziest eidolons in the game for a DPS, only recently being rivaled by Acheron's E2. He has some nuance to his gameplay on lower cycle clears, but if you just want to beat content within the cycle limit, well, level 3 enhanced basic, go brew till you win. If you want to pull him, I think he's great, though if you started before 2.1 ends, you do have a free Doctor Ratio who is incredibly strong when he's set up correctly, and he fulfills the MOC imaginary weak niche just fine. If you struggle with a bit of AoE though, and or love hot imaginary men, you know what to do. Jingliu then dropped in 1.4 and people were perplexed why a unit that doesn't consume 3 SP a turn does similar damage to Lune. I still didn't find the answer, but Jingliu is, just like Lune, another top DPS even in 2.1. She has much weaker multipliers over Lune, but her gimmick, the Spectral State, will give her a 50% crit rate and a 180% attack boost, which is a little bit crazy. Her attacks in said state also drain allies' HP, but it's by such a small bit that only specific situations suffer or early game players with weak sustains. Oh, and she doesn't need to use skill points when using her enhanced skill in the Spectral State. She's an all-around beast and an easy unit to get started with, only having a weaker peak than Lune and Acheron. Jingliu remains a great DPS to pull and max out, and I don't think that will change for a bit. She also helps with the needed ice coverage when considering our other ice DPS options. Misha can perform very well too when you min-max his setup, and Herta is better in pure fiction, but Jingliu works much better out of the box, and of course, is a top tier 5-star DPS at the end of the day. Remember though, with any DPS, you don't need them specifically, and having fun and pulling who you like is important too. I've seen people displeased with Lune and Jingliu after pulling them for meta purposes. Now, Shuiyu came out in 1.6 with a banger A2 passive that shook the 4-star DPS's world to its core. She is pretty single target focused and her multipliers are whack, but her possible 240% damage from break effect conversion is massive. I'd say her gimmick is this break to damage conversion and the fact that she needs to break to do maximum damage. However, she still has decent non-break damage. She does have the hardest gear requirements among any DPS in my opinion, alongside Welt, and she does need a smart pilot to pop off, but when she works fantastically. Her weakness ignoring identity on ult and talents post E2 are especially nice, since a lot of MOC stages will see you face 2 elites, and there's nothing more annoying than having one on your element and one off your element. I think with how break is being hinted a ton in Penacony, Shuiyu could rise even further than before. Now Shuiyu is a 4-star DPS, so we could eventually get a 5-star version of her, but if they don't capture her same level of fun, then you can always stick with her. She is a great quantum DPS to invest into, much like Qingxue is too, so pick your poison. Just remember her gear requirements are tricky, and so is her setup, but to be honest, so is Qingxue's setup. Now, before we head on to light cones, Misha is our latest destruction unit, showing the same element as Jingliu but having a much different playstyle. His gimmick is all about stacking up his ult like a lightning lord and nuking enemies with it. His kit is a bit weird with its offensive utility buffs and debuffs and sustained power and damage, but if you like weird kits, maybe he is for you. His Eidolons all scale him very nicely into more damage too. There are no weird Eidolons here. Again, we have a 5-star ice destruction already, but for non-Jingliu pullers that are suffering into ice weakness, maybe it's time to invest into Misha to help cover that element until another DPS comes later down the line. With MSC bosses becoming tankier and hitting harder, his high freeze chance on his first ult hit can be very good for survivability too. So here's a summary on how I'd rank units based on element coverage, which isn't that necessary for top DPS, as well as how easy they are to invest into, and then general strength. Now, the destruction path isn't just composed of units, it has light cones, and these light cones have friends and families too, you know. The 3-star light cones are not used at all thanks to free-to-play options, so let's go straight to 4-star ones. Our free-to-play ones are Wolf, Walk Time, and Flames of Fire. Wolf is for physical and fire destruction units or any that uses Guinaifen as a support. It's a decent starting cone, but lacks power and consistency on most units anyway, and ideally we use better supports than Guinaifen. Flames of Fire is only usable on Blade, but it is a very strong option for him. It helps free-to-play players attain a stronger Blade as the only option close to his signature was Secret Vow S5, and even then, it was far away. With Sam on the Lightcone art, maybe Sam can use it too, just like we can use Dreamville Adventure on Clocky from the 2nd anniversary banner in 2025. The Battle Pass Lightcone is nowhere to run. It's a big attack stat stick, but so is Aeon, and this has the cost of 5 Battle Passes just to be weaker than Aeon. The healing passive is not too useful too, as we have sustained units. If you're collecting all the Battle Pass Lightcones, I guess you can use it one day. Onto 4-star gadget cones, starting with the Moles Welcome You. This cone is also an attack percent stat stick and can't even heal you, how rude. It does reach a higher attack than Nowhere to Run with the caveat of having to basic attack, which is a bit annoying for those skill spammers. It is a weaker Aeon again and only used if your Aeon is taken and you don't have any other cones and you love the destruction path. It applies after your attack too and can't be used if you have a non-damaging ult like Clara. A Secret Vow is a much nicer gadget cone. It gives a large damage percent boost that doubles when your health percentage is under the health percentage of the enemy. Say you're at 50% HP and they're at 60%. This second passive isn't really obtained by anyone not named Arlen or Blade, but the base damage boost is what counts at a high 40%. Jingliu, for example, stacks attack percent. Blade can't use attack percent, and for the others, well, damage percent is very cool to have in general. Under the Blue Sky is one of my favorite types of light cones, an on-kill light cone. Think Genius's Repose, but for destruction. A 48% crit value boost for doing so on top of a decent amount of attack percent makes this cone pretty nice on any destruction unit you're confident in, and it's pretty strong when optimized. You'll just need to make sure your crit ratio accounts for said crit rate buff. It's also pretty awesome for weaker crit ratio on mid-game relics too. We finally have Indelible Promise, usable on only Shui. Converting to Shui terms, this is a 56% break effect buff for her break damage, a 56% damage buff with her conversion, and a 30% crit rate buff on ultimate. This cone on paper is very powerful, but not always best on Shui. Insert Aeon image for the 50th time. If you're playing around it though, it is best on her and it frees up the Aeon slot for someone else. This would be, for example, a fast sparkle setup with attack percent boost Shui. Now for 5-star cones, we have to start with Aeon, the best Herta cone with Stellar C, and somehow it was doom posted in 1.0. A potential 64% attack, a decent base attack, and a 2-turn 24% damage buff if you break. It's a very good stat stick, and this cone is best in slot or second best in slot on nearly every destruction unit. What's nice too about the attack buff is that it stacks before your attack does its damage. Even without breaks, it's still a better Moles or Nowhere to Run, and you should be breaking anyway, especially with the high toughness damage potential a lot of destruction units have. Something irreplaceable is our standard Destruction 5-star cone. It's pretty Clara based and is strong on her, though Aeon beats it when you get a few breaks in. For other Destruction units, it's hard to reliably proc its passive, but it remains a nice stat stick. S5 4-star cones like Val and Blue Sky should be prioritized though for non-Clara units. As for the limited cones, they're all excellent for their respective DPS, of course. Over Aeon, they're second best. Lunay's is the weakest of an increase, especially with Tingyun, and Jingliu's is the second biggest increase. Blade's cone over S5 Val is the biggest increase in power. Since all of them have great free-to-play options though, you don't need any for them to excel, it's just further upgrades for those dopamine numbers. Blades makes building him much easier and really helps him though, and I'd choose that over the others if you're looking for an upgrade on any of these units. For other Destruction units, Blades and Lunay's are strong stat sticks, with Jingliu's being too hard to activate for anyone else. Finally, here is a little ranking on how universal these cones are for the Path's units. I hope you all enjoyed this look into the Destruction Path, and I hope it helped some people out. Since it is a new video type, please let me know if you have any suggestions on content I should include or remove in these videos, and like and sub if you want to see more. Thanks to my amazing YouTube members, thank you for watching, and have a go day.